Namaste everyone, good evening and welcome to Bombay Chamber of Commerce's first Sustainability Summit. I'm very excited to be here and join all the participants as well as my fellow members in the chamber. The topic today is a very important one. Why do we need sustainability? Our view is that sustainability really will be for the next 20 years what digitization was for the last 20. That is, it will be embedded in all aspects of the business and the value chain across industries. Integrated business models are emerging that are sustainable with respect to both environment as well as capital and returns. This will require bringing together all stakeholders. It will also require leveraging technology and innovation to help us address this difficult trade off and solve for developmental challenges by unlocking the exponential scale and accelerating inclusion. The intersection of technology and innovation with sustainability can already be seen in paradigm shifting solutions such as electric vehicles, solar power, carbon capture, storage technology, etc. Sustainability and ESG are no longer confined to boardrooms. They are becoming important drivers of business strategy. The need of the hour is to catalyze sustainable production and consumption. Climate, as we know, is a global system, and the effects of climate change are trickling down into all aspects of India's economy. Today's target for the summit, the focus for the summit is achieving net zero. And achieving net zero will not take place with a silo approach. India's shift to sustainable business models will need to integrate all our stakeholders across government, policymaking, corporates, as well as the innovation ecosystem. The Bombay Chamber's Sustainability Conclave seeks to provide a common platform to bring together these important sustainability stakeholders. We are grateful to our keynote speakers, Shri Bhupendra Yadav, Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and Labour and Employment, Government of India, and Mr. Amitabh Kant, CEO NITI Aayog, as well as all the panelists and moderators for being a part of the conclave. We look forward over the next 2 days to creating dialogue around topics such as ESG landscape in India, sustainable supply chains, technology, solar energy transitions, funding for sustainability, including others. We will create together with you a holistic view on sustainability, which will be essential for catalyzing the sustainability shift. On that note, I will turn over to our keynote speaker, Mr. Amitabh Kant. I have been given the very difficult, in some ways, the very easy task of introducing Mr. Kant, who actually needs no introduction whatsoever, as CEO of NITI Aayog, India's premier policy think tank, chaired by the Prime Minister himself. Mr. Kant really sits at the confluence of all major trends in across-sector policy making. He could not join us today live, but he has sent us a recording and all his good wishes. On that note, I turn over to Mr. Kant. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the world is racing against nature, human greed, and more critically, time to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2100. The United Nations COP26 conference in Glasgow was a seminal moment in this race. Prime Minister Narendra Modi presented his 5 point agenda or the Pancha Amrit while delivering the national statement at the COP26 conference. The first is to raise the non-fossil fuel-based energy capacity of India to 500 gigawatt by 2030. Also by 2030, 50% of the country's power requirements would be met using renewable energy capacities. While reducing the total projected carbon emission by 1 billion tons between now and the year 2030, the carbon intensity of the economy would also be reduced to less than 45% by 2030. Finally, India would achieve net zero emissions by the year 2070. These targets assume a unique value, especially when it comes to climate justice. The UN Emission Gap Report 2020 had evaluated India's progress, and based out of all the independent studies, it concluded that India was well on its way to achieving its NDC targets. India is probably the only country to achieve the targets which were spelled out at Paris COP25. India's action, as per the climate action tracker, it said that India was only G20 country whose NDCs were compliant with the 2-degree global warming target. It is also worthwhile to note that US, EU, Russia, Canada, and Japan are responsible for 60% of cumulative carbon emissions between 1751 and 2015. Today, if one were to consider the 1.5 degree scenario, only 14% of the carbon space available for the entire world. All the balance 86% has been consumed by the developed world. In addition to total carbon emissions, per capita emissions of developed countries are high. Historically, least developed and lower middle range countries recorded low per capita emissions despite having large populations to sustain. In the context of developing nations, their minuscule historical contribution to global carbon space makes a compelling case for demanding a fair share of remaining available carbon space and the right to develop. Specifically for India, its historical utilization of carbon space since pre-industrial times is only 51.94 gigatons CO2. India has used only 1.3%, only 1.3% of total carbon space if you go by 2 degrees centigrade warming scenario, and 1.8% of total carbon space if you go by 1.5 degree warming scenario. If the global community accepts the principle of dividing the carbon space equitably across nations on a per capita emission basis, India's share would be 17.5% of the total space, or 700 gigatons at 2 degrees centigrade warming scenario and 490 gigatons at 1.5 degrees centigrade. India's ambitious targets in COP26 should be studied in the context of India's consistent demand and its domestic push towards clean technology. India is today investing billions of dollars in electric vehicle subsidies, ethanol blending in gasoline, solar PV, and battery manufacturing. Despite our track record in emissions, India has already undertaken multiple initiatives for reducing economy-wide emissions, especially that from the energy sector. Energy transition in India is happening in 4 forms: increasing electrification, higher penetration of cleaner fuels in the energy mix, accelerated adoption of energy efficient technologies, and rising digitalization. We have ambitious targets. India is presently the 3rd largest energy consumer and has the world's 4th largest renewable energy installed capacity in the world. India's grid connected renewable electricity capacity has already crossed the milestone of 100 gigawatt excluding hydro. Including hydro, it's over 150 gigawatt. We are targeting self-reliance in energy production by 2047. We are looking at 100% electrification of Indian railways by 2024 and net zero by 2030. The FAME2 scheme launched in 2019 will further embed electric vehicles in the commercial and private vehicles. Already many states have taken initiative to develop EV charging ecosystems. Circular economy is being pushed further, and the recent vehicle scrappage policy is a step in that direction. Several production-linked incentive schemes like the electric automobile scheme, the battery storage, the solar manufacturing are directly linked to climate-related sectors. Our belief is that the future will be digital and will be green, and companies which go digital and green will both add valuation and will attract capital. India is focusing on a seamless and flexible integration of renewable with the grid. While many argued that energy storage will be too expensive for India, we have pioneered the world's cheapest RE plus storage tenders. Energy storage with renewables in the form of batteries, green hydrogen, and pumped hydro provides firm power, while storage with conventional systems increases their flexibility. So we can expect to see storage with renewables coal, gas, etc. at the same time. Thus, batteries in particular have a triple role to play in catalyzing round the clock power, increasing power system flexibility, and also decarbonizing mobility storage. Similarly, green hydrogen helps in integration of renewables as well as decarbonizing the industrial and transportation sectors. The future lies in green hydrogen, and India is well placed to lead the world in its development. Green hydrogen has been given a major push, and Prime Minister has announced that by 2047, when India achieves 100 years of its independence, India will become independent of fossil fuel import. This would require us to give a major push to green hydrogen. Its innovation, technology development, and financing will be key to making this a reality. Reduction in cost of electrolyzers is very important. India's solar tariff is quite low. It is just about 2 rupees per kilowatt hour. We have to harness our solar potential for creating green hydrogen with size and scale to bring the cost of hydrogen at the lowest level. We are working on a hydrogen energy mission and aim to be the electrolyzer manufacturing hub of the world. The key to sustaining low renewable energy tariffs lies in the availability of low cost capital. Green hydrogen can provide a fillip to the grey hydrogen based refinery and fertilizer products, catalyze methanol economy, provide a sustainable alternative to long distance trucking, and also serve as a reliable energy storage medium. Large-scale penetration of energy storage technologies in Indian power system is imperative if India is to reduce dependence on fossil power plants and providing baseload capacity. On the demand side, shifting towards advanced digital metering, automation, and smart appliances is an opportunity to unlock the potential of distributed renewable energy in the country. In the last 5 to 6 years, we've become the most favored destination for energy investments. India has received over US 7.2 billion of foreign direct investment equity inflows in India's renewable energy sector since 2014. India has a very liberal FDI policy in energy sector, including renewables. Up to 100% FDI is allowed under the automatic route for renewable energy generation and distribution projects. Ladies and gentlemen, with ambition and intent in place, now is the time for action, innovation, and implementation. Majority of long-term targets by most countries depend on technologies that are not yet mature. The technologies like green hydrogen, green metals, carbon capture, solid state batteries, electric fuels, heat pumps, and next generation solar PVs would be critical to reaching global climate targets. India should invest in mainstreaming of cutting edge clean technologies to help the world transition from an era of climate promises and usher in an era of climate compliance. This would require a new kind of industrial revolution where countries like India, unlike the developed world of today, can industrialize without the need to carbonize. Along with presenting the world's India's Panch Amrit climate action policy goals, Prime Minister Modi had also announced the unique concept of lifestyle for the environment, which is about individuals making environment and climate friendly lifestyle choices and life becoming a mass movement or a Jan Andolan, with India showing the world the way forward. Industry, transport, buildings, households, and individual consumption behaviors are the most important drivers of emissions. While reducing of emissions may require policy and structural intervention, it is just as important to appreciate that equal emphasis is required on the cultural dimensions of climate change. Individual behavioral factors adversely affecting the climate need to be squarely addressed. These conscious choices can be achieved by designing evidence based, effective, and scalable individual, community, and society level behavioral change interventions. The need of the hour, based on the clarion call given by Prime Minister Modi, is to transform climate action into a people's movement, which relates to a set of behaviors that places harmony with nature at its very core. Environment and climate friendly human behavior would be especially important across sectors. I'm very optimistic that given the commitment to climate action at the topmost level, India will emerge as a world leader in emission reduction. India will also show the world the most sustainable way to achieve it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.